Welcome to Recently Logged, where this week it's the millennium and motives are incidental. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to October.
Well, I guess we started like our autumnal season. It was like seasonal run last week.
I said welcome to October.
I was very confused for a second because I thought last week's episode was in October.
And now,
but yes,
fall starts in September.
That's very true.
Goes through November.
But yes, welcome to October. My name is Robbie.
And I'm Micah.
And we do our name introductions sporadically on the podcast. I don't think we do them every episode. I think we try to.
I feel like you do it. I don't care to do it. They don't need to know my name. They just need to know my voice.
It's anonymous.
Exactly.
Micah's like, my opinions, they are my name.
I never think to say my name, but you bring it up almost every episode.
Well,
so.
I feel like it's important for people to know who's who, you know?
Yeah, I mean, then you're not
in the episode description, we're just credited as Micah and Robbie, you know?
Just Micah and Robbie. Well, anyway, since it's October, we're starting what we came up with this year's Halloween series that we wanted to do.
Yeah, last year I think we just kind of did like a hodgepodge of a bunch of fall and Halloween related movies. I think we did Over the Garden Wall either last year or the year before.
I remember we did the Harry Potter series one time around fall, but I think that was like 2 years ago.
No, I think you're right. Yeah, we did like Midnight Mass.
Yeah, we did Muppets Haunted Mansion, Beetlejuice, Midnight Mass, Over the Garden Wall, Malignant.
It's a good run.
Yeah, just, spooky stuff.
Man, Malignant. That film has aged like fine wine, and it's only been like a year.
Yeah, and then 2 years ago we did Harry Potter.
Yeah, okay. Which, I mean, thinking about it, Harry Potter's like the perfect series to go from like fall to winter, you know?
No, it is. It's a very transitional period. That's why you gotta wait till that's why I said Prisoner of Azkaban is a November movie.
It is. I'd stand by that. But anyway, we're talking about. Did we say what we were talking about? No, we didn't say what we were talking about. We're talking about Scream. We're gonna do at least the Scream trilogy. I don't think we're gonna extend it to 4 and 5, but maybe, I don't know. It depends on a couple things, but we'll see. I own the trilogy on Blu-ray, so we're for sure gonna talk about those. But the rest are kind of up in the air. So yeah. Scream. Let's tell the people what they need to know about Scream.
All right, Scream is a 1996 movie.
It really is.
It is rated R. It is an hour and 51 minutes.
It really is.
Its little IMDb description is a year after the murder of her mother, a teenage girl is terrorized by a new killer who targets the girl and her friends by using horror films as part of a deadly game.
I mean, yeah, kind of.
The cast features Neve Campbell, Courteney Cox, David Arquette, Skeet Ulrich, briefly Drew Barrymore.
Although she is briefly in the movie, but she is definitely a memorable part.
Where's Matthew Lillard?
Is he not one of the top listed cast members?
No, he's like all the way down here.
Nah.
Matthew Lillard. Jamie Kennedy, also Randy. So Randy and Stu are all the way down here.
They're the unimportant characters.
Rose McGowan, which is Tatum. Like, why are all of the main characters way down here? You've got Sydney, and then Gail, Dewey, Billy, and then just like
random people who are at the party.
People, and then like Tatum, Stu, and Randy.
That's funny.
It's directed by Wes Craven.
It really is.
Written by. Hold on. If it'll bring up the whole.
Micah's like, if it'll actually load.
By Kevin Williamson.
The MVP. For real.
And yeah, it's a horror classic.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you are old enough to watch horror movies, or even if you're not, you're probably familiar with Scream to some capacity. It's been a cultural mainstay for decades.
Yeah, I mean, at any rate, I guarantee you know the Ghostface mask.
Yeah,
I mean, like, come on,
right?
It's Scream.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But anyway, let's get into what we thought.
Yeah.
So, Micah.
So, Robbie.
What did you think of Wes Craven's Scream?
What did I think of Wes Craven's Scream? Me?
I mean, we don't actually hear him scream.
My personal opinion on Wes Craven's Scream.
Yes, that is what we want to know, Micah. That's why the people came, I assume.
I think Scream is probably one of the best horror movies out there, and I think it's probably one of the most fun and funny horror movies out there. And I think it's got a lot of really great energy, and the cast is fantastic. I think the filmmaking is immaculate. It's just such a fun, like, I mean, from the word go, I'm super engrossed in this film.
Yeah,
like you're just there for the ride, 100%. And it never really comes down, and that's a good thing. And like, I don't know, it's really, really fantastic.
I mean, yeah. I mean, there's a reason Scream is like a classic to the extent that it still is. Like, so many people I know who are even my age still love Scream, you know?
Yeah.
And it came out in 1996. But yeah, no, Scream is kind of a marvel, really. Like, we mentioned Kevin Williamson. I said he was the MVP, but like the screenplay for this movie is so good. Like, just in the text of this movie, there's so much you can just dig into and enjoy, and it still manages to be super fun and still scary, and Wes Craven does a great job directing it. I want to see more of his movies, really.
Of course, until last night, apparently Robbie did not know that Nightmare on Elm Street was a Wes Craven movie.
Oh, I thought you were saying Kevin Williamson directed it.
No.
Okay.
It's a Wes...
No, I figured Wes Craven directed it. You were talking about Kevin Williamson's other credits, like I Know What You Did Last Summer and everything, and you were like, oh, he directed Nightmare on Elm Street.
I was saying that Wes Craven wrote Nightmare on Elm Street.
See, I was confused, Micah. But yes, Scream, great movie, great cast, fun time.
All right, what did you rate Scream?
I rated it a 5 out of 5.
Whoa, that's crazy, because I did that too. That's so wild. I'm sure this will be an interesting episode, because the episodes always are when we both rate things 5 out of 5.
Right. That was like the shortest like summary of my thoughts I've given on a movie lately, like this entire season.
No, dude. Okay, but I'm okay with that, because the summaries are supposed to be brief, and sometimes we get to the summary and you're like, well, let me go into every tiny detail of the things that I want to talk about, to where we have nothing to talk about in the discussion. Allow me to elaborate in brief and in extreme precision, to where everybody's like, wow, we don't have anything else to listen to now.
Well, we got to give the people what they want, Micah. You can't leave them waiting around.
Oh, that's what they want. Anyway, let's get into the deeper discussion.
Whoa.
Let's get into the serious stuff, Robbie.
All right.
Did we do it? I don't remember. Do we do a different segment? We don't do it. We used to do a segment. We used to do a segment. Okay, we're not breaking.
Imagine a little harp noise, and now we're in the deeper discussion.
Harp noise, man. You're slamming the stuff in the listeners' ears.
But yes, the deeper discussion, Micah.
So Robbie, do you have any questions?
Sure, I do. This movie kind of takes an interesting approach to its opening. It doesn't include really any of the main cast, like in the opening. So I was just going to ask what you thought of that. I mean, cold open kills aren't like unheard of in slashers, obviously, but it's interesting to me how almost disconnected it feels from the rest of the movie, but I think it's a very good tone setter.
No, I was about to say I really loved the opening of this film.
Yeah,
it's super gripping. And it kind of gets you into, like, extremely invested in kind of the vibe of what Scream is going for before we ever get introduced to any of our main characters.
Exactly.
Like, the horror stuff is really, really good. You kind of get a lot of the mystery offered.
Yeah.
And a lot of like, I don't know, it's funny. Like even the opening, which is probably one of the less funny things.
It's played pretty straight.
It's still pretty funny at point.
Right.
And I think that's really like part of the unique charm of what makes Scream work so well, is because it's very rare to see a horror movie that is funny that works this well. Like that works this well with its comedy, that works this well with its themes, that still stays pretty serious, that still stays pretty scary.
Right.
And I think like the opening is just like a genius way to set the tone.
Yeah, I was going to mention, because the opening really functions as kind of a tone-setting short film. Like you could just watch the opening of this movie and be like, "Wow, that was great."
That's the ride short film. It's exactly. When you're waiting in line.
But yeah, no, I think it really like establishes so much of what makes Scream unique, because you're right, it is very funny, but it also kind of it's gripping in a way that like the rest of the movie definitely maintains. And I think it really speaks to Wes Craven's like directing prowess, that he's able to get such a mastery of tone. Like I haven't seen any of Sam Raimi's horror movies as of yet, other than Drag Me to Hell.
I was about to say you've seen Drag Me to Hell, which does a pretty decent job.
I was about to say
specifically.
He's one of the few other horror directors I've seen other than Sam Raimi who's able to like
Wes Craven, you mean?
Or Wes? No, yeah. Other than like Wes Craven's the one.
Oh,
other than
I thought
Sam
you were talking about Sam Raimi.
No.
Still.
Wes Craven does a very good job of balancing like the scary moments in this with the funny and more lighthearted moments. And I think a lot of the kills in this too are like a really good example of that.
Yeah, I still really love that he does not, Ghostface does not get a single kill, I don't think. Except for, I don't remember, I think maybe the principal. I think the principal dies pretty easily.
Yeah, he goes down pretty easy.
But he does not get a single kill outside of that, where he does not get like wasted in the process. Even Tatum like decks him and throws like 3 beer bottles at him.
Right.
He's getting injured severely. Yeah, I think that kind of like, as funny as that is, I think not only like, I think it plays to the themes really well. Like, you know, it's kind of funny, but B, like it really kind of sets the tone for how kind of weirdly down to earth the killings in the movie feel.
Right. Yeah. No, that's interesting.
It's one of the most like, because the movie's really goofy, but one of the most like personal and almost intimate feeling like killers I have seen in a movie, which is goofy coming from this.
Exactly. Yeah. Not something you'd expect, but I think something really interesting. I think I saw a tweet yesterday about this, which yikes, but they were talking about, I think it was just like a compilation of Ghostface in all of the Scream movies just getting like beaten to a pulp. And someone mentioned that like one of their favorite aspects of this series is how scrambling all of the murder scenes feel. Yeah, like it's especially rare for slashers because so many of them are just like someone sneaks up behind you and like kills you immediately. Instead you get with this like just this like 1.5-minute long sequence usually of just like people fighting for their lives.
Yeah, I was about to say even like that's one of the things that makes the opening so interesting is because it's really long actually. You don't expect it to be this long, but it takes a long time for him to actually like get her.
Yeah, no, when I first watched Scream, because I hadn't seen Scream until like, I don't know, a couple months ago, like 5 or so months ago. And I expected it to be like the length of an Office cold open, you know. I was like, oh, they're probably gonna do like a 1-minute long, 2-minute long scene where there's like a joke and then she dies or whatever.
But they introduced the movie stuff. She talks for a long time. You get really into the atmosphere of being at this like empty house in the middle of nowhere.
I jumped so hard when the chair slammed through the glass.
You did. It was really funny because I didn't jump the first time or the second time the chair slammed through the glass.
I jumped both times.
So we were sitting there and then he just like jumps so hard from this chair.
It got me so bad. Yeah, no, the opening, man, it's so good.
Okay, so what do you think of the setting? Because settings, from what I've seen of Wes Craven's films, are pretty important. Of course, I've only seen 2 of them, but they're pretty...
What's the other one you've seen?
I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Did he direct that?
Yes.
Oh.
Ravi, what is going on?
I thought it was someone else. Oh my goodness.
Well,
okay.
I thought it was him.
No, it has a completely different director. Kevin Williamson is the connecting tissue between
I'm so
Scream.
Confused.
Okay, Micah, Kevin Williamson, screenwriter for I Know What You Did Last Summer,
yes,
also wrote Scream.
Yes, because it's Jim What's-His-Face, yes.
Yes.
But I thought... I'm so curious. I thought Wes Craven was like a producer or something. At least.
I don't think he was involved. I
am
shook.
No, I didn't. No, that was a mistake on my part because I knew he didn't direct it because I knew this guy who apparently didn't do another like good horror movie did it. But yeah, the screenplay is done for I Know What You Did Last Summer by Kevin Williamson.
But yes,
and the lady who wrote Hotel for Dogs.
You are correct. Setting is very important to the 2 Kevin Williamson
Kevin Williamson. Sorry. I literally just said the wrong thing because I knew Wes Craven didn't direct that. Man.
Okay. Kevin Williamson, what did I think of the setting of Scream? Where is this set?
I don't know where it's set exactly.
Yeah, I wanted to say like LA or something.
Yeah, I think it's in California.
Yeah, it looks like California.
They did the Scream event thing in California.
I assume it's California given the landscape and the houses, like the architecture and everything. Yeah. It looks like California, so I'm assuming it's California. But what do I think of the setting? I really don't...
Like how the movie uses its setting is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know. I hadn't given it too much thought. I assume you had some nugget of truth to provide for us, Mike.
Westboro, California.
Westboro, okay. Yeah. There you go.
It was shot in Santa Rosa, California.
But what did I don't really know. You make make a fool of me.
Wow.
Like I hadn't given it that much thought.
No, I think they used the setting in a pretty unique aspect because it's a very small town, and it's a very like rich small town.
Yeah.
So I think almost any time you get kind of things from the town, things of locations, everything feels very kind of separated, but kind of almost like in a manic way. In fact, almost all of like the high schoolers and any scene that you have from them is very off-putting.
Right.
Like just very disturbing in a way almost from the way they react to stuff. Mm-hmm. And you take kind of all of these settings for... Why did I just lose her name? The main girl.
Oh, shoot. What is her name? Micah, no. Sorry, this is our clumsiest episode.
Sydney. Yeah, you take all of these areas for Sydney, and it kind of pieces together into this very kind of hollow, but like really in your face kind of world. Like everything feels very separated. All the houses are very alone. Nobody's around any of them. But yet everybody seems to just kind of like be there. It takes a while for everybody to get to places, but like it feels very, I don't know, up close and personal for Sydney, you know?
It's very interesting. I don't know. I had never given it much thought because watching I Know What You Did Last Summer, like the setting of a fishing town, like on the 4th of July, it has so much character. And Scream also has like
I feel like the location has quite a bit of character.
It does.
It's just used for kind of different effect, especially with Sydney as our main character.
Exactly. I just hadn't given as much thought because it's not as pronounced of a like it's a lot more similar to what I live in, you know.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking about it because it's almost like it's often at night, and if it's not at night, it's often at the school. Yeah. At the school is very abrasive for Sydney specifically, and when it's not at the school, it's usually in some isolated location. Like any of the houses she's at, it seems to take a long time for anybody to get there.
It's a good note, Micah.
So I just thought it was very interesting for the setting because it was either, it's either very abrasive for Sydney or kind of falsely secure for Sydney.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't really have anything to add, but yeah.
I just thought because if I Know What You Did Last Summer, like just the locations really stand out to me, and I think it does a really good job of, again, getting the atmosphere of what the movie is going for.
Yeah. And I had something I wanted to bring up, which, I mean, this is obviously, I think, one of the biggest talking points when it comes to Scream is, what do you think of its, like, metatextuality and transtextuality?
Metatextuality.
The way it interacts with horror mythos and
as
movies,
more or less the horror parody in ways.
Yeah, because I think it's very interesting, because I've never seen a movie handle like metatextuality in the way this does when it's not a satire, because this isn't a satire, it's a slasher.
Yeah. And it's very, very interesting.
Which is interesting because it feels like it should be just a satire of a slasher, but it's not. It plays most of its beats very sincerely.
I mean, technically speaking, it was made as kind of a satire.
I mean, yeah, but that's the thing. It's not like, maybe it is. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the definition of satire, but it seems too sincere to be a satire.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's very interesting.
It's very, yeah, no, but the way they utilize it in the movie is very interesting too, because you were talking about this for kind of like the themes of what they're going for the characters and everything, and how kind of the movie, so much of the movie relate to like movies, and specifically scary movies for most of the thing. In fact, the movie was going to be called Scary Movie originally. Like, it's very integral to the DNA of the movie is that all of these characters essentially relate in some way or watch in some way movies.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of people, like a lot of the reviews I've seen, kind of point to that as like, oh, the characters know they're in a horror movie. But I'm like, I always just interpreted that as people who the only way they know how to like translate the violence that they're seeing is through horror movies. Like, I never saw that as like a wink to the audience, like, oh, we're in a horror movie. They're relating their actual lives to a horror movie.
At one point, Billy literally says, "This is a movie. This is all a big movie."
Exactly.
While practically looking at the camera.
I know. I don't know. Maybe I have a bad interpretation for Scream.
No, I think because I think honestly, on the surface level, there is a very clear just adds to the tongue-in-cheek of Scream of them all being like, yeah, these are movies, yeah, we're in a movie.
Exactly, yeah.
But I do think you can take that a little bit deeper and talk about what you're talking about, where it kind of metatextually talks about a lot of the situations and the way these characters handle the lives they're living.
Exactly. And see, that's maybe I'm reading too far into Scream. I don't know. Maybe it's just supposed to be a dumb slasher, like dumb meta slasher. But I think it's I think that's why it's stuck around as long as it has.
Well, it can be a dumb meta slasher and have
exactly
and have depth,
and that's what makes it so captivating. That's what I was going to bring up. It's very interesting to me.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting the way they go about relating scary movies to stuff, and I mean, kind of the entire thing with what they say at the end when they reveal who the killers are is, again, they're like, no, like horror movies, scary movies, they don't make killers, they just make them more creative.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like all of, like, almost every element ties back to a movie usually in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I figured you had more to say about that because you were saying more to me specifically earlier.
What else did I say? I mentioned how, like, obviously I think the big thing is the processing of trauma through, like, relating your life to art you consume, which I think is only becoming more relevant as people grow to be more consumption. Like, a lot of people base a lot of their lives now on, like, around consuming art, which I do a lot of the time.
Well, see, and I was actually going to say, and that's kind of why I wanted you to bring it up. Because I had a little bit, either not inherently a different read of that, but kind of similar but different. Because you have all of these characters kind of, and it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like a Nope vibe of you have all of these characters who are pretty much terrible people. Like, almost every high schooler in this movie is shown to be just a terrible person.
Right, yeah.
And all of them are obsessed with scary movies. They're obsessed with the gore. They're obsessed with, like,
the tropes,
like everything in there they're obsessed with, except for Sydney. Sydney doesn't like scary movies.
Yeah,
she doesn't watch them.
She's like the only character in the entire movie.
Exactly. So I think that's very important for kind of, because I think it's more or less criticizing the mindset of kind of, you know, using media as like a way to get off, essentially.
Yeah, no, I absolutely but I'm like, yes, that's the conclusion. But I was just bringing it up as like, you know, this is my read of the movie, and like I think that's the conclusion that they're going for.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it is very interesting. I didn't think about that. Sydney is the only person in this entire movie who doesn't like scary movies.
Exactly. Because maybe Ravi, she's actually had a scary life, and
so you think it's kind of criticizing the like consumption of trauma.
Yeah, like that was kind of my read. Okay. Like they kind of get like, you know, it's kind of disgusting to Sydney, who witnessed her mom's death.
Yeah.
To watch all of these people be so engrossed in the different elements of don't do this or you're going to get killed, or this is watch this person get brutally killed, or here's the like obligatory this, here is this, in these movies about things that are similar to what she witnessed, because, you know, she essentially lived a horror movie.
apparently my brain just shuts off when I'm watching Scream, because that had not occurred to me, but that's a good read of the movie. But yeah, no, yeah, I think that's good. I like it.
I was like, yes,
I agree with the good opinion. Yes.
Well, no, again, and I think a lot of these elements, and what makes Scream such an effective movie, is a lot of these elements are kind of presented in ideas to you, kind of briefly questioned and answered, not in any very extensive amount, to the point that there's a lot of depth into the movie, but not enough that it takes away from the fact that, like, it's just really enjoyable. It's really, you could turn off to this movie completely and still enjoy it, or you could read into every little element and still enjoy it.
Yeah. No, definitely, for sure. And I think you mentioned, like, I mentioned specifically the, like, criticizing the consumption of trauma.
Yeah.
And that pretty much sums up the news reporter character.
Exactly.
I don't remember her name.
Like,
but yeah, that's
one of the top reviews is on Letterboxd for this movie is really funny, because she like literally almost dies. Like, she is brutally attacked, and then like 5 minutes later she's out there and she's like, my first account, like first-hand account of all of these things.
What stage of capitalism is that?
Exactly. So I think it's very, very tongue-in-cheek in a lot of ways, and very almost poignant in like a lot of the ways it kind of points out how terribly these people react towards the traumatic events happening around them, except for Sydney. Yeah. Sydney's the only one processing them, really.
Yeah. No, that's good. It's a good nugget. Now you're making me wish I had more to bring to the table. I was just gonna come here and like mention my read of it, and then be like, Wes Craven, he's so good at directing.
Wow. Well, I think I don't know. I feel like this movie's got a decent amount of depth on top of just being fun.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. I'm just bad at reading into it. That's the reason I don't want to be a critic by trade. I just think it's fun to talk about movies.
I've gotten better at it since I started doing video essays.
Now that you're writing video essays, I'm out of my league, you know.
I gotta read into everything.
But something else I wanted to bring up, unless you had.
No, go for it. I was just about to ask if you had another question.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what did you think of the cinematography? Because that's one of my favorite aspects of this movie.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite aspects of this movie. But I think it's very interesting because, on the whole, I don't think, like, for my personal taste in cinematography, it doesn't inherently, quote unquote, like, kind of I guess the photography is more what I'm saying. The photography doesn't, quote unquote, stand out. Like, if you take a frame of this movie.
Oh, like stills?
Yeah,
I mean,
stills. So
there's some nice looking one shots.
There's some nice looking ones, but nothing. It doesn't play to specifically my stylistic interests of how like just a still frame of this movie looks.
No. But
movies aren't watched in still frame.
But well, I'm just saying, for aesthetics purpose, that isn't usually like my cup of tea. But one thing that this movie does insanely well is use its camera and its motion, and really like it does like almost these. And it's interesting because I wanted to like read into it more. I wanted to figure out kind of what it meant filmmaking language wise, but I didn't really come up with anything by the time we got to the podcast. But oftentimes you'll have a very stagnant frame, and then to move towards some motion, you'll have somebody, you know, using the lenses that they'll have like very drastically break out of frame. Like the motion will feel very harsh as they break out of the stagnant frame.
Yeah.
And I mean, heck, even again, like you mentioned while we were watching the movie, even the scenes in the house and everything with the way they use like their lenses and the cinematography, it feels more like you're floating through the houses half the time with the way the motion is done.
I was about to say, I can't imagine someone watching this movie and not loving like the floaty Dutch angles and the quick swipes and everything. Like the way they shoot Ghostface especially is so fun to me. Like they usually shoot him with a long lens or something, you know. They make him appear almost mythical, even though he's just like a guy who gets pushed around. It's so good.
No, they do a really good job of cultivating, like, again, the atmosphere of what the movie is going for, even though, again, Ghostface is kind of goofy at the time.
Yeah.
Which interesting, Mark Irwin did the cinematography on this. Cinematographer from 10 Things I Hate About You and The Fly and Videodrome.
The old Fly or the Cronenberg?
Cronenberg.
Oh, okay.
He's a Cronenberg cinematographer, I was about to say, because The Fly, Videodrome, Scanners.
I was about to say maybe that's the wrong era of Hollywood.
He did the Dead Zone. Oh. He did the 80s Blob.
The 80s Blob, that is an immaculately shot movie.
No, like he's out there. He did I don't remember which one this is, but it's one of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. He did the cinematography for it, but not the first one, but it's just called New Nightmare, so I don't know which one it is.
No, Mike is like, I don't know what this is.
But yes, he's a Cronenberg, on the most part,
that makes sense,
cinematographer.
Then. Yeah, man, I don't know. This movie is something. You know, in the way it's shot.
No, you say that, but like I very much get what you mean. It's a very unique feeling to be in this like the cinematic language of this movie is very unique, I think.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's something about it. There's something about that I can't explain because I'm not
as literate
in actual like camera movement, filmmaking, kind of things like that. But just the way they utilize a lot of the close-ups versus their wide lenses, and the way they utilize a lot of their depth of field and everything makes for like a very interesting, unique experience while watching the movie. And I haven't really seen too many other movies that use depth of field like this movie does, or use kind of extreme close-ups and long, like not long wides, but like, you know, staying on wide shots for a long time.
Yeah.
And it really, I don't know, it's really like an awesome movie to watch.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, it's gripping, and it's very effective. I don't have the terminology for why, because I just don't know like actual cinematography stuff that well.
Yeah. The only thing I was really going to mention was how great the anamorphic stuff in this is, because it provides you such an intimate knowledge of the space that people are in, and like I think it adds to, what am I trying to say here? Kind of the first person's perspective that we get in all of the horror sequences. Like the anamorphic lens accentuates the point of view of the person being chased.
Yeah, here's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Because you just brought that up and it made me think. One of the things that I think the anamorphic. Why do I keep trying to say anthropomorphic, which is not correct?
That would be scary. An anthropomorphic lens.
The anamorphic lens. One thing that I think that really does is again play to kind of a lot of the vibe of kind of like the desperate manicness of the killings, like, because again it gets you kind of in the mindset of the victim in terms of like you're constantly looking around, you're kind of like swinging, you're running, you're moving fast, but you're looking everywhere, and it's super effective. And you pair that with the very personal like
extreme close-ups of faces that they do for kind of, because again, like I said, the killings oftentimes feel strangely intimate for an unknown killer in a mask.
Yep.
So I think they do a really good job of like making their cast feel so intimate and really getting you into the headspace of any of the people and like under attack using the lenses and like the cinematography.
Yeah, no, makes me wish doing this podcast makes me wish I was a little more literate in film, which I am studying.
I was about to say, I was pretty sure you were studying.
No, I am studying
Want to be a cinematographer.
But it's just like when a movie is shot this well, it makes me wish I could pick it apart with more depth than I can on this podcast.
I was hoping you could, Revy. I was looking to you to tear apart the cinematography.
If I am your source of cinematography genius, then it's a sad day.
I care more about writing.
Yeah,
I'm a writing guy, a writing man.
It's just, I don't know. It has such a visual mastery, and it's so nice to see amongst like modern horror, which is a lot of what I've seen.
That's what I brought up specifically. That's why I brought up specifically that like aesthetically it's not particularly my thing.
It's really kind of a grayish movie. It looks not that great a lot of the
because
time.
Despite that, it's one of the most engaging to watch movies I've ever like visually engaging with its cinematography movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Which again, compare that to modern horror.
I call Scream grayish. It looks like a painting compared to modern horror.
Well, even just like a lot of my big problems with a lot of horror movies I've seen, and a lot of slashers are usually different. I love slashers so far. Yeah. Slashers is my favorite horror genre.
Yeah, that's my favorite too.
But a lot of like especially supernatural horror and stuff, which is I'm just not that interested a lot of times.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it really bothers me the way they use cinematography, because I mean sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but a lot of supernatural haunted house style horror movies use cinematography to be very restricting, purposefully. Like they'll cut angles, they'll try and get you to constantly, and sometimes, very rarely, if it's a well written movie and it really gets you into it and everything and the cinematography is decent, like, you know, I'll be like, yeah, I'll be engrossed in that. Take like the Babadook cinematography, or like The Conjuring.
I was gonna bring up The Conjuring actually, because I think that's a really well shot movie.
Those are two examples, and even The Conjuring it gets into what the second half of what I was gonna bring up with this. But a lot of times the only way that those get to work is if they use those and kind of a similar effect to kind of get into any of the action. And I think in The Conjuring especially, and even in the Babadook, despite a lot of the hard, tight, cutting off camera angles, they do a lot of like movement. They do a lot of fun once things get going.
That's what I really love about The Conjuring, is how much the camera livens up in the like last 40 minutes or so.
And so many horror movies, especially modern horror movies, are just so stiff. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, my neck hurts. And like, you know, like it's not interesting, it's not engaging. And I think a horror movie especially has got to be visually engaging. Like the camera movements itself, the camera has to be like essentially a character.
And that's why I love horror so much, is it lets people suspend their disbelief just a little bit more because they want to be scared by the movie.
Yeah.
And it lets directors let loose, and, you know, cinematographers and just filmmakers in general, it lets them just have more fun crafting the movie without having to worry about what the audience is going to think of it.
It's the real reason I'm not that pressing to watch Paranormal Activity.
Dude, I can't wait to see that movie.
Because I don't know, like stagnant stuff in a house does not sound interesting to me.
Stagnant shots can work really, really well. It just it takes a lot of good staging. Good staging.
And I don't know, like so many of the horror movies I've seen are just so dry and bland, and
well, they're just very clumsily shot. Like it looks like they were just shooting coverage of a scene and then they'll figure out how to put it together visually in post, which is not a good way to shoot horror, in my opinion.
Yeah, like I said, I think horror specifically, I mean, every genre I think needs to have good cinematography, but I think horror specifically, like I said, the camera needs to be a character.
Well, yeah, because it's so pivotal in setting the mood and the scariness of a scene, you know?
I was about to say, because oftentimes in horror movies, even the main character is not usually your audience character. That is not the character you're like the audience inherently gets into. Scream, I would say less so. I think the audience attaches itself to Sidney pretty well.
Yeah, no, it has to.
But oftentimes in horror movies, you know, you're not inherently connected to that character, so you end up kind of connecting yourself to the character of the camera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if your horror movie or scary movie does not have a good character camera, I often get really bored with it as a horror movie.
Jaws is a really good example of that.
Jaws, Texas Chainsaw, Suspiria,
Texas Chainsaw
Scream,
is also a very good example.
The Thing. Of that. All of my favorite horror movies have I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. I guess to one of the final things I wanted to go over, me specifically anyway. You can bring up something else if you want. Is how great the cast is. What did you think of the cast?
The cast is so much fun,
right?
I love this cast. Literally, Dewey is literally it's David Arquette. Literally gives such a good performance. He's so much fun. He's funny. Dude, and the writing around him is amazing. Every bit with him. He's honestly one of my favorite characters in the movie just because of how engaging and I don't know, it's funny and comforting.
Yeah.
He's like a I don't know how to describe him. He's a sweet, funny, goofy little character. And they just, oh man, dude, him taking the bite of the ice cream every time he smokes.
That's one of the best bits in this whole movie.
We were dying laughing because that's amazing. I think Sidney honestly ends up being one of my least favorite characters of the movie, but that's just because she is the most serious element of this, and oftentimes I'm but these characters are so much fun.
Yeah.
And again, the movie kind of criticizes that, but because man, Matthew Lillard's performance is really fun. Really, really
I don't know.
fun.
I don't know what Matthew Lillard was doing in this, dude.
I love Matthew Lillard. But Randy, I don't remember the name of the guy who played Randy. I really enjoyed his performance.
Jamie Kennedy.
But yeah, you have Billy and Sidney, and they're very serious performances usually.
Yeah, usually. But man,
they're all good. They're all so good.
It's so good, and I assume that Wes Craven is a good director because the performances all gel so well. When with a script like this, you could very easily misread a role.
Yeah, I was about to say that's actually a really interesting thing to bring up because I was going to mention this. It's very interesting. I thought the first time we watched this, how they introduce their characters and how they deal with their main characters, because they're not they're a friend group, but they're not really a friend group.
Yeah, they're not really friends.
They seem just very antagonistic to each other all the time. Because you introduce and they're all hanging out. You got Randy, Sidney, Billy, Stu, and Tatum.
Yeah.
And the five of them, they're
Tatum.
they're hanging out, and they seem typically your typical movie, they would be just a tight friend group. They would do everything.
Fun-loving group of kids.
No, that's not them. Especially after the killings and everything. Randy is constantly at the throat of Billy and Stu, and Sidney doesn't know.
Stu's the worst person in the world in this movie.
He's so bad.
Right.
And Sidney is always questioning Billy, and Tatum is just being Tatum. It's I don't know, it's a very unique friend group, and it really only works, I think, because of a lot of the cast.
Yeah, it feels so fully realized, and I don't know. It's great.
They sell that these guys for some unknown reason would be friends.
Exactly, right? But yeah, no, I thought it was worth shouting them out because they are just absolutely
I love the cast.
Yeah.
Killer Remy.
Oh my goodness. Even Drew Barrymore. I'll say it.
Yeah, no, she's really fun in this for the bit she's in it.
Yeah.
I did want to bring up one last thing. I was saving it for the end.
All right.
What do you think of the finale, the reveal, all of the final stuff, because I think the final house sequences are amazing. I love the house stuff at the end.
The final house sequence is over a third of this movie, isn't it?
Well, I'm so saying long. Yeah, but I'm saying like, I mean, yes, the entire house stuff is fantastic in my opinion, but even just like the
you're saying
final
like
bits
after Ghostface appears at the house kind of thing. Okay.
The kind of wrap up of the movie.
What do I think of it, just generally?
Yeah, what do you think of the reveal? What do you think of the horror? What do you think of the situations, the locations? I don't know. What do you think?
There's a lot to tackle there, because you get like the reveal of the killer, which is brilliant in my mind. Like, I love the central like mystery and the, again, like the tongue-in-cheek kind of like who's the killer, you know, because it always has to be like one of the many choices in your character roster. And I think the reveal at the end is really clever and smart, which obviously like I think most people do for Scream. But like the sequence on the whole, I think is also really great and gripping, and it maintains the energy to an extent that I wouldn't expect.
No, I was about to say, it constantly feels like it just like I mean, like you said, the house stuff goes on for like a third of the movie. And it doesn't feel it, like, almost, you know, like it feels so like once you get to the house, everything feels so like succinct and flowy and like really unique with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, I really love the reveal. I love the way that like they use, again, kind of the fact that they don't really have any reason to be killing anybody, as to kind of add to a lot of the themes of what they're going for and a lot of the metatextual stuff that they're going for in the movie. I think it's like, again, criticizing kind of getting off on, like, you know, essentially other people's trauma and stuff like that.
Yeah, no.
I really love just the way that entire scene goes down and the way it plays out. I love the like the detail of when like Stu gets like, you know, Billy gets upset with Stu, so he stabs him way too many times and he actually starts bleeding out.
Dude, I the first time it happened when we were watching the movie, I'm like, are they serious right now? That's pretty good.
And I actually I think they do a really good job, because a lot of movies do not pull off the kind of, like, they joke about the ending where like the killer keeps not actually like dying, and I think they pull it off really well, of like the keep switching of power structures of like, this person is here to help, and then oh no, Randy's down, and then oh no this, and then oh no this, and then it keeps going and going and going for that final little bit. But I think it's really well paced and works really well. I was about to say, it
feels like a scramble or a mad dash to get to the end, but it also doesn't feel out of control.
Yeah,
which is a very hard thing to do.
Exactly, because like a lot of movies, when you would get to this point, I would be like, okay, we get it.
Yeah, right.
But in this, I'm just like, yeah, this is like so engaging.
I love how like all of the non-main characters end up clearing out of the house.
Right, I think that's so funny. It's a huge party, and then they end up like
just like everyone leaves
to just the main characters.
I thought that was
a shout out to Stu's sweater. I want his sweater.
You want Stu's sweater?
I want Stu's sweater.
Channeling Matthew Lillard.
Sure. I can't match his energy. He's too powerful.
We need to get him in more roles. More work for Matthew Lillard, please.
Since very good. Since his Scooby era, and since he's been in like every Scooby-Doo movie, and he still is, he's mostly done like random one-off like TV show characters and stuff. It's great, very weird. But Matthew Lillard is amazing. Yeah. Love Matthew Lillard.
Also, shout out to Skeet Ulrich, because he is great. And
who does he play?
Billy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't know, man. I don't know what he was doing. I don't know what any of the cast was doing.
Shout out to the principal, too. Oh, my gosh. The principal's little monologue stuff that he does. I love him.
It's so funny,
He's so funny. And it's, I don't know. I love this movie. But that's really all I had to specifically bring up, you know.
Yeah. And we'd talk about like this in the context of the rest of the series, but we haven't really seen the rest of the series. Yeah. So I guess we'll have to see in the next episode. I guess I feel like I haven't talked that much about Scream, like what I think of it personally, you know. I feel like we spent a lot of time like analyzing it and everything, but at the end of the day, my to close my thoughts so I don't feel like I left anything out. I think it is immensely fun, very well crafted, like slasher horror that somehow dances the line between like satire and just a straight up like great funny slasher.
Yeah.
And it kind of breaks my brain because I want it to just be like either a straight up like satire of slashers and like go full out like just like this, like the slasher genre is kind of dumb, but it somehow manages to do that while still being a very serious slasher, which like that's insane to me.
No,
like,
it
breaks my brain.
It's like a classic. It's a well-renowned, well-known, like super like integral to horror history classic for a reason, because it's doing something that I literally, again, I haven't seen the rest of the Scream movies, but literally haven't seen anything else do.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I genuinely think this is one of the most fun horror movies I've ever seen. It's super fun. It's super engaging. It's scary. It's in your face. We didn't even mention it, but I think like the killings themselves are all very like
they're so
extremely harsh feeling somehow. Like they pull off like somehow being very like you feel the blows.
Again, the cinematography,
which is a very rare thing. I think the sound design is insane on this movie. I didn't even bring that up, like the scissors thing with the principal.
Oh my gosh!
Like there's so much. There's like you could just talk about this movie for forever.
It's one of my that's one of my favorite things about movies is like these kind of movies is the ones where you can just like sit down and just like pick apart every element and manage to find something new.
Yeah, and I think
exciting.
And I think that's really what makes Scream such a classic. And like it's everything about it is classic. Everything about it is rewatchable. Everything about it is either just as simple as you want it to be or just as pick apartable as you want it to be.
Exactly. You can read this as like the dumbest slasher ever and it still works. It's still a good time.
And it maintains to be one of the best horror movies I think I've seen. I really love it.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, a pretty glowing review. This might be actually one of the best like overall scores we've given a movie because we both gave it a 5. Like that's a very rare occurrence.
Both giving it a 5. That's crazy.
But yeah, Wes Craven's Scream. I cannot wait for Scream 2. I cannot wait to watch it.
I know some people who like who think Scream 2 is the best
exactly
one,
that's what I hear,
which is crazy.
And if it's better than Scream, what am I gonna do?
I was about to say I don't know if I'll be able to handle that. But yeah, we'll be back. I think in 2 weeks is when we're planning on doing Scream
because we're gonna take I'm thinking we're probably going to talk about Rob Zombie's new Monsters movie this next week, hopefully. But then after that, yes, we will be back to Scream.
But yeah, that was Scream. I hope you enjoyed that discussion. And now let's talk about what we watched this week.
Let's do it.
All right, so we are going from the 25th.
It was a very low key start to what we watched.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, but for those of you who don't know or have never listened this far into the podcast, we do a little segment at the end we call the "What We Watched" segment, where we talk about everything else we've watched since our last episode. This time it will not be very long, as we did not go crazy.
Did not go crazy. That's good to know.
So we'll just share our ratings and some brief thoughts, if I can speak. Nothing too fancy. So what did we watch first, Revy?
Sorry, I'm yawning. That was not intentional.
on the 26th, after Dead Poets Society.
After Dead Poets Society, we watched a little Stanley Kubrick film. A little ditty called Lolita.
Interesting film.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
This was a rewatch for me. I was very curious to watch it again, just because I was kind of, I don't know, if you know what Lolita is, it's a very baffling movie.
How did they ever make a movie out of Lolita?
Well, you brought up a really good question that I'm just sitting there wondering now. Why did Stanley Kubrick choose to make
direct this? I don't
it's extremely anti pedophile. Obviously, it's I've mentioned that to somebody why would they direct it, and they were like, well, maybe he's a pedophile. I was like, well, I very seriously doubt that, being that they make this movie they have
the sentiment of Lolita is that
Humbert be literally the worst person
Humbert's
in the world.
The worst person,
terrible in every single way,
and the movie knows it. It very directly criticizes
I was about to say it pulls no punches in showing you how terrible of a person he is. So like, but why?
Yeah.
Like, well, not why is he a terrible, but like, why make the movie?
Why? Yeah, no, I love Kubrick. I love his craft and the eye for like visuals he has.
No, and I think it's a great movie.
No, and I think it's a great movie too, but I just am genuinely curious why Kubrick wanted to make Lolita as like, and this is like one of his early movies.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. Weird. But I think the cast does a fantastic job. I think it's really, really disturbing. Like I said, I really love how the way they open up with kind of like the most violent act to kind of show you how much more like I don't know, they open up with the murder, right? Which I think plays to how much more disturbing everything else in the movie
right
feels.
The fact that it opens with this man murdering someone and then it only gets kind of more gross and disturbing after that,
which again was a change that Kubrick made to this, like, to the story. Like, originally that was just gonna be at the end of the movie. But I don't know, like, it's a very, very good movie. There's a lot of really, really fantastic craft behind it. A lot of in-depth stuff with its framing and its settings and its set design and its acting, and like it's fantastic. But like at the same time, you know, with what it's about, it's not a particularly fun movie to watch.
Yeah, it begs a lot of questions about like what art should portray versus like what art, like,
because
what
like,
we want art to portray.
Yeah, I was about to say, because like a black comedy about pedophilia and an abusive guy is interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. I said it's Kubrick at his most Hitchcockian, and I think I'll stand by that.
It definitely is. Which, again, I saw somebody saying that this movie, this is my final thing about it because I don't want to talk about it too long. This movie is where Stanley Kubrick took everything that made Hitchcock very seductive and twisted it into being very disturbing.
Yes.
Which I think is like fantastic craft wise.
Exactly.
But again, like
Kubrick's genius filmmaker, questionable decision maker.
Like, I just don't know. Like, again, I just don't know why. Yeah. Maybe like the people needed this film in the 60s. I don't know. Maybe they needed to see how terrible like was pedophilia more rampant back then.
Did they need a wake up call? Like, I don't know.
like I mean, that's why I'm pretty sure that was why the book was originally written, was to show like how abusive and awful and gross like it was.
Yeah. But anyway, later, I didn't tell you what I
gave it 4.
I also gave it a 4 out of 5. But anyway, later that day, I watched a Finnish film for the very first time. 2022's.
Did you finish it, Rappy?
2022's Hatching, Micah. Yes, I did. It's a family horror movie, like a horror movie about a family. I mean, I guess you could let like a teenager watch this. I don't know about a young kid. It's almost Del Toro-esque in its horror, which is very nice. I like seeing it. It was fun. The premise is good, like really good, and everything else is pretty good. It's just the family dynamic stuff, which is the like heart of the movie, never really clicked for me. So I think I get what they were going for, but it just never like worked the way I hoped it would. But it was still good. I liked the puppetry and horror creature designs and everything. It was a very cool movie. Yeah. But I gave it a 4 out of 5.
Nice.
Good stuff.
Then we hopped on down to our local AMC.
The local AMC.
And sat down for cinema.
We really did.
We went to the IMAX 3D re-release of Avatar.
We just did an episode.
We did an episode on it not too long ago.
Yeah.
But man, I wish we would have done that before we did the episode, because like if you haven't seen it in 3D, like real 3D, it feels like a completely different movie.
It really does.
It's so engrossing, and it's entertaining and emotional and beautiful, and I was fully into it when we were in the theater. It was fantastic.
American blockbusters may have peaked with Avatar, and I don't know that we can ever match it.
I don't know about that. I disagree, but
yeah, no, it's so good. It's such a deeply like human film, given especially it's so like sincere that it's often goofy, which is good. I like it.
And its world building is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, it's
the
Avatar.
VFX, man.
The VFX look fantastic.
It was shot for 3D.
I can't believe it's aged.
It was shot for 3D, and I hadn't seen it in 3D, and now I have, and I feel like I've actually seen the movie now.
But yeah, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5.
I gave it a 5 out of 5.
Fantastic.
It's great stuff.
Then on the 28th, we sat down for Happy Halloween Scooby-Doo.
But it wasn't Halloween. No.
Happy Halloween Scooby-Doo.
I guess we can still wish Scooby a happy Halloween.
You can wish Scooby a happy Halloween anytime.
I see.
But yeah, I'm watching through every Scooby-Doo movie.
Yeah.
And this was one of the newer ones to go through on the list. And it was an interesting one. It was a very unique Scooby-Doo movie, but it felt very messy. It felt very like it had a lot of the problems that a lot of modern Scooby-Doo movies have. But it stayed fun. It stayed creative. It was inventive.
That's all you can ask for, really, at the end of the day.
I gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
I also gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
It was the weirdest crossover movie I've ever seen.
So weird.
It crossed over Batman, Elvira, and Bill Nye.
Bill Nye, baby.
Rather prominently, all three of those things.
They're all crucial plot elements.
Then on the 30th, what did we watch, Remy?
We watched the immortal classic of cinema, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Whoa.
The 1954 one.
Shout out to the 1954 immortal classic 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, written by Jules Verne.
Which for some reason has crossover in cast with Lolita.
Yeah, right.
Which, James Mason... He's very good in this. I question what his agent was doing.
Right. Apparently they wanted Cary Grant to be Professor Humber in Lolita, and he was like adamantly against it, which I would be too. I would not want to play him. I'm gonna be honest.
But yeah, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, best live action Disney movie? Yes. Confirmed.
Peter Lorre, Kirk Douglas.
Oh my goodness. Stacked cast for sure. The lighting, the
sets, the practical effects. The atmosphere.
The giant squid.
It's really fun. It was surprising. I did not expect this to be fun. It's still a little, I don't know. I don't like the structure that much of the story itself. And I think, I don't know, maybe it's just the book, like adapting it too closely to the book or something. But I think this kind of story, the way it's presented, would work a lot better in a book. I wish they would have changed it some in the way that it presents itself for the movie.
That's why it's not a 5 for me.
But it's still really, really fun. The cast is really fun. The effects are really cool.
Dude, the giant
squid again. Yeah, that's fantastic. I have no idea how they did that.
I don't know. I'm scratching my head. How did they make the giant squid look so good?
But yeah, I don't know. It's a fun movie to be in. It's a very it's a very low stakes, relaxing, classic feeling movie.
Like I said, best live action
again,
Disney movie.
It gives those vibes of, again, and I actually realized this after I put this in my review, but both of what I mentioned were actually live action Disney movies, but In Search for the Castaways and the live action Treasure Island. It has that vibe, but like a good movie.
I was about to say, but like with actual thematic richness and a good cast and everything.
Which is good, because I have a lot of nostalgia for that vibe that the movie is going for, because I grew up on both of those movies. Yeah. But I gave it a 4 out of 5.
I gave it a 4.5 out of 5.
Whoa.
Big recommendation for me. I love it. Great stuff.
Then on the 1st
of October, very month,
I watched Scooby-Doo, The Sword and the Scoob.
The Sword and the Scoob.
which is another very new Scooby-Doo movie, 2021. And I don't know, man, newer Scooby-Doo, they need to get like a new director or something. They need something to put a spark back into Scooby-Doo, because this is fine, but it's just fine. Most of the new Scooby-Doo movies I've seen have been pretty mid-tier, and this is pretty mid-tier to a fault. It just doesn't do much. It's pretty boring. It's fine.
There you go.
It's, I don't know.
We can hear all about it in your Scooby-Doo ranking video.
Yeah, also, Velma sucks. I'm sorry. Velma is terrible in this
My favorite Scooby-Doo.
I was about to say, Velma is my favorite Scooby-Doo alumni character person, and almost all modern Scooby-Doo makes her terrible and annoying, and this movie, it like doubles down on how annoying she is. She does absolutely nothing but complain and talk about how no, because science.
You know, it's funny. I actually think my favorite Scooby-Doo members are either like Daphne or Shaggy. Either that or Scrappy is an honorary mention.
Scrappy is great. But no, Velma is just super grating this time and literally brings nothing to the movie, which is very sad.
Sad times, man. She's one of the most interesting characters.
Right. I gave it a 3 out of 5.
Womp womp. On the 1st of October, I watched a little German war movie.
A little German war flick.
Just a little movie about the horrors of war, you know?
Yeah, a little casual watch.
Very, very good. I liked it a lot. I mean, there's no shortage of like harrowing. I don't remember how to pronounce that. Harrowing, like war movies, like very desolate. It's about a group of children being drafted and then sent out into battle the next day. Like unintentionally, like it's literally just a mistake.
It's like a Stanley Kubrick movie.
Yeah. But what's really like wild about it, like I finished, like you get to the end of the movie and it's very sad because like pretty much spoilers for a 50s German war movie. But everyone's pretty much dead at the end of the movie. And then it like fades to black and says these events transpire. It like gives the date. Like they tell you at the very end that it's based on a true story. I'm like, are you kidding me right now?
More.
But yeah, wild stuff.
Gotta hate it.
Pretty well crafted, very well performed. I gave it a 4 out of 5. It's called The Bridge. I realized I didn't say the name.
You never said the name.
The Bridge, yes.
Then on the 2nd,
of October,
I watched Aloha Scooby-Doo.
I'm like German war movie. Mike is like Aloha Scooby-Doo.
Which Aloha Scooby-Doo, sadly, it ain't it. It's about on the same tier as the Mexico Scooby-Doo movie. Of just like A, being really boring, and B, being kind of culturally insensitive.
Fair enough, yeah.
The Mexico one is a little bit more... no, I don't even know if I would say that. But see, what's crazy about Aloha Scooby-Doo is it seems firmly on the side of the Islanders for like most of the movie. It shows you how badly like the mainlanders treat them. It like the entire thing kind of centralizes around the fact that, man, it really sucks that the mainlanders are here. They're taking, like, they're in part of our, like, competition that was just for Islanders for so many years. Now they're being terrible, blah, 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 blah. And then the entire thing, like, pulls the rug out of that by being like, well, maybe the Islanders were actually the bad guys and the mainlanders are really the good guys and they should be here and they should be taking all of the land. And I'm like, what?
Mike is like, wait a minute.
And it also,
did I miss something?
And it also is the second movie after Samurai Sword that compares like one of the ethnic groups of what they are showing either to a dog directly or have them beat by a dog.
Oh no.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, can we not do this? Scooby-Doo interacting, and I know Hawaii is part of the United States, but like, why is it part of the United States? It's a Pacific island.
Right.
But it is definitely like, it's still a different culture, and Scooby-Doo movies should just never portray a different culture, especially being that they somehow keep going to like marginalized cultures.
Right. Like, why not go Scooby-Doo goes to Russia or something?
Scooby-Doo goes to Europe. Like anything.
Scooby-Doo goes to France. I don't know.
They just keep going to the worst
to like islands and Africa and like what.
But yeah, all in all, it made for not the worst Scooby-Doo movie, and like it wasn't the worst even on that front. They're a lot worse. Again, Samurai Sword and even the Mexico one, I don't remember the name. They're pretty bad in that area. But it was just boring and uninteresting. I give it a 2.5.
Fair enough. On the second, I watched a little film you might have heard of called Battle of the Sexes.
Nope, nobody's heard of that.
Nobody's heard of it.
I've literally, Robbie, not heard a single person talk about that since it came out.
Right. No, this came out back in 2017, and it was from like two acclaimed
when it came out.
Yeah.
But I have not heard a single person talk about it since it came out.
Biopic about Billie Jean King with Emma Stone.
Billie Jean.
Exactly. You know, it really surprised me. This is one of the best, like, I shouldn't say one of the best.
One of the best.
It surprised me that this was like a bisexual story. I did not know that. I did not know that it was. I didn't know that it was going to be, but it's actually pretty well done. The only trouble is she's married, so it's a little reprehensible, which makes me sad because this is actually one of like the best depictions of that I've seen on screen. But like that's also cool. Morally questionable. So
I did not know that about it like at all.
Yeah, Battle of the Sexes. Interesting movie, very well shot. Emma Stone is not at her best here, but still good. Steve Carell is a weird casting choice, but like he does pretty well in this. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about him in most everything. Like you can tell he is a good actor, but I think he's just like miscast most of the time. But yeah, interesting movie. I thought it was pretty great. But yeah, I don't know. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I'm surprised more people don't like it, honestly. Or at least haven't seen it. Like hardly anyone I know has seen it.
No, I've literally never heard anybody talk about it.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's what we watched. Then we watched Scream last night.
We watched Scream last night.
Had the volume all the way up, you know.
That was the week.
that was the week.
Some good movies.
This is I'll maintain that this is probably like our sloppiest episode we've done in a while.
I don't know about that.
I've been so disorganized.
I made like one mistake.
You've been reining me in, Mike.
But yeah, that was our episode. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Go watch some good movies. Go watch Avatar while it's about to be out of theaters. To be out of theaters, man. Go watch the IMAX 3D if you can. Go watch Scream. Watch some good spooky movies.
Go watch Mean Girls. It's Mean Girls Day, Micah.
Mean Girls Day.
October 3rd.
October 3rd.
Yeah.
Mean Girls, I hate to say it, is not a Halloween movie.
No, it's not. But Micah, on October 3rd, he asked her what the date was.
It's October 3rd.
I want to try and watch Mean Girls today, but I also want to see Children of Paradise before I take it back to the library. So,
but yeah,
it's the eternal struggle.
We've got stuff to do. I've got stuff to do. So, ouch. I don't know what you're up to today.
You don't know my life.
Calling people and watching movies.
I was going to say I'm going to watch some Ted Lasso, and then I'm going to watch Children of Paradise.
Yeah, I got work. Got a job.
I know.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. We will see you next week, maybe with the monsters.
Hopefully.